No, that makes sense. And that actually leads me on to the next one, which is probably the second most popular one. I see that probably agencies adopt this more than freelancers, I think, which is a percentage based on the ad spend of the client. So, if the client is spending, I don't know, somewhere in the region of like, 50,000 a month, let's just say, then, 10% of that is 10% 5,000? I want to say
Hmm.
that. Can you check my maths
Yeah.
on that one? Yeah.
Nope, you're right.
I need to own it,
5,000.
be more confident on that. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's 5,000. It could be wrong, but I don't know.
Mhm.
And yeah, so usually you look at how much the client is spending and you say, okay, well, we'll do 10%, we'll do 20%, maybe 25% of the ad budget, and we'll use that as our management fee. And again, I think that's a fair approach because if a client is spending 50,000 pounds or dollars per month on ads, they can afford to spend, maybe 10% of that on your management to get you to the next level.
How's it going, everybody? My name is Gene Villanos. Welcome back to the PPC Cave with my co-host Ryan Fenton. Say hello, Ryan.
Hello, guys. How you doing? Nice to see you again.
Yeah, so we're back and continuing on our series, How to Get Started as a Google Ads freelancer slash agency. And in this episode, we're going to discuss what is a reasonable Google Ads management fee to charge. And before I get to Ryan, just really quick for me, I think this is an age old question, and we've pondered this if you're in the realm of thinking of starting an agency or freelance side hustle or main business. But I think for me, this is a loaded question, and it just really depends on your priorities, right? For me, I could get into it more later, but it depends on your priorities as a freelancer or agency. And I think it could go a lot of different ways. And I think Ryan could attest to that also. And we can get more into specifics here shortly on my end, but I'd like to ask Ryan the same. What are your initial thoughts?
Yeah, there's more than one way to skin a cat when it comes to charging for Google Ads management services. I'm going to be going through a different kind of ways that you can, charge for your services. Do you want me to go straight into it, or you? Yeah, you're good. Okay,
Yeah.
we're not messing around today. We're straight in. Okay, cool. I think Gene's got dinner reservations in like an hour or something. He's got to hurry up. But
Yeah, I'm
um,
hungry. Just kidding.
yeah. So yeah, there's so many different ways that you can charge for management of Google Ads accounts. There's a couple that are really popular, and then there's a few others that I've seen firsthand, and one or two that I've heard about. But getting into it, probably one of the most, well, for me, most popular ones is a fixed monthly retainer. I'm looking at my show notes here just so I stay on track. A fixed monthly retainer. I'm quite confident that Gene and I use this. I definitely do. I think Gene does as well. Do you?
Yeah, definitely
I thought you
fixed.
did. Yeah. And for the like probably 80% of the time, this is the most common way to charge for Google Ads account management services. You choose what you want to charge. Obviously, it depends on certain things, such as how experienced you are. If you're just starting out, and you might want to go back and watch last week's episode where we did, I think, a really good job where we talked about, just starting out and, how to get started as a Google Ads freelancer or an agency and some methods there. But if you're just starting out, then maybe you want to start off with a lower management fee just to kind of get your feet wet a little bit, just to get some reviews coming in. And then once you start to have a little bit more traction, a little bit more experience, that's when you can begin to up your management fee. So, typically people, usually do £500 here in the UK, $500 in the US. It's a nice round figure. It sounds good on paper. Most people would probably agree to that. Some people have charged more than that. Agencies I've worked at historically have charged 2,500 a month. But it all depends on the size of the client as well. There's so many different factors
Wait,
to
hold on.
this.
Just sorry, 2,500 for just Google Ads?
Yeah.
Oh, wow, that's okay. Continue. That's amazing. That's my
Well,
goal.
yeah.
Just kidding. Just kidding. Go
No,
on.
but seriously, like, yeah, I heard of a story of one guy. I think he was charging like 5,000, 6,000 a month for Google Ads services. Hell yeah, yeah, and he wasn't doing anything, and the company was just paying for it, and he was frustrated with the results. And this was an old agency that I worked at, and he came to the agency, and he was like, "Yeah, I'm paying like 5,000, 6,000 pounds per month management." Um, and I'm not really seeing the results. I'm not really seeing the guy do any work.
Mm.
So, that's crazy for me. But I've heard people charging like 10,000 a month, 20,000 a month as well. This is more on social media, on like X.com and things like that. Like, well, what was Twitter? A lot of people maybe just boasting results and trying to put themselves out there like, yeah, I only work with the top like 10% of clients in the world that I can charge £25,000 or dollars a month, which is just crazy. But I don't know what the logistics are of that. I don't know if that's accurate or not. But yeah, management fee really comes down to experience. It comes down to what you feel is a fair representation of what value you can provide to someone. I always try and keep things moderately fair. Obviously, it's a business, it's my business. I want to get paid for what I do. I have a certain set of skills and I want to get paid for them. I think, did you
You're
get
like
the
Liam
take?
Neeson.
There we
Yeah,
go.
the
Yeah. I
Taken.
didn't know if you
Uh-huh.
got the
Oh,
reference there.
come
That's
on.
cool.
Love that movie.
Yeah, right. And but it's true, I think if you're good at something, never do it for free.
Yeah.
And I've put a lot of hours, a lot of time in to learn Google Ads, many agencies, award-winning agencies here in the UK, right down to startups and things like that. So I've like to think I've got a lot of experience and I've been doing it for so long now that I think what I charge as a management fee is a fair representation of the value that I provide. And that's what it comes down to. So that's number one. What do you think about that, Gene? About, a fixed monthly retainer? Do you think that's fair or
Yeah, I definitely think it's fair. And to be honest here, Ryan will have a lot more experience in this realm of setting up like a management fee because he's seen so many different structures with his previous experience. For me, not so much. I've kind of winged it, but a lot of the advice that Ryan has given me, I've taken on this, on this topic. So, but yeah, with the retainer, fixed retainer, I think that is probably the best way to provide a sense of safety also for the client that there is a bit of a bell curve as opposed to straight up. If the spend goes up, then the percentage goes up. So I think it's a good way to ease into a bit of a management fee to client agreement for sure.
yeah? No, that makes sense. And that actually leads me on to the next one, which is probably the second most popular one. I see that probably agencies adopt this more than freelancers, I think, which is a percentage based on the ad spend of the client. So, if the client is spending, I don't know, somewhere in the region of like 50,000 a month, let's just say, then 10% of that is 10% 5,000. I want to say
Hmm.
that. Can you check my maths
Yeah.
on that one? Yeah.
Nope, you're right. Hmm.
I need to own it,
5,000.
be more confident on that. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's 5,000. It could be wrong, but I don't know.
Mhm.
And yeah, so usually you look at how much the client is spending and you say, okay, well, we'll do 10%, we'll do 20%, maybe 25% of the ad budget, and we'll use that as our management fee. And again, I think that's a fair approach because if a client is spending £50,000 or dollars per month on ads, they can afford to spend, maybe 10% of that on your management to get you to the next level. So I think that's fair. Whether that's fixed or if that changes over time based on performance, that's another thing. Obviously, if they decide, okay, well, we're at 50,000, but we're going to take it up to 75,000, do you stay at 5,000 or do you move it to 7,500? That's a question, but I don't know. So that is another way of doing it. And, in some cases for certain clients, I think it's okay to do that. Even if you're on a fixed monthly management kind of basis, if you get a client that's spending that much, I think it's only fair that, Gene and I get paid what we like deserve, really. If we're taking on an account that like that of that size, of that nature, then $500, £500 a month, $1,000 or £1,000 a month, it's not going to cut it. I don't think. You need to kind of be fair with the size of the account, with the ad budget that the client is spending in relation to what we can bring to the table, what we can provide in terms of value, and get paid for that. So yeah, another one that I've seen, probably not as frequent as the monthly retainer. I think that's everybody's go-to. But Gene, any thoughts on a percentage based um,
Yeah,
fee?
no, the percentage based, hadn't too much experience on percentage base. Sometimes what I will do though, if I'm restructuring a monthly retainer fixed, is I'll go off a percentage to structure either up or down closer to that number percentage, but still towards a fixed retainer. But I totally think that's valid also. It just really depends on your structure and how you want to do things. So yeah, I can see that being a viable option as well.
That's cool. Yeah, cool. And then just a few others, like more irregular payment structures for Google Ads freelancers and agencies and things like that, performance based. There's been probably a handful of times when people have reached out to me and said, okay, well, look, I don't have any money at the moment, but once I get like 50 leads, I can then afford to pay you based on what we generate. So can you run ads for free, and then I will start paying you? And it's a little bit of a con man, a little bit of a snake oil type of approach, I think, in my opinion, for someone to come out and say, can you do it for free? And then when we get business, when we get the leads, when we get the sales, we'll pay you then. First of all, I don't think it's fair for my current clients, because they're paying me to do a job at the end of the day, to manage their Google Ads account. And I love doing it. And I love the relationships that I have with all of my clients. I'm very lucky to have such a great set of clients, and it's not by accident, it's actually by design. I make sure that every person that I speak with, we're on the same page going forward. We're well aligned in where we see the business going, as much as it's their business, generating leads, generating sales, all that. That's absolutely fine. It's their business, but we have to work together and not against each other. There can't be any friction between us. So that's why I'm very particular about who I work with, and I want to make sure that I'm on the same page with people. And thankfully, touch wood, I've got such a great, just such a great client base, really. So that's the other thing, is that if someone says, can you work for free, it's not really fair on my current clients. And it puts a lot of unwarranted stress and pressure on the advertiser to deliver the results. We're not saying you can't get the results. It's just, you need to pay us to do the work. No one's going to work for free. And like I said just before, if you're good at something, never do it for free, I think. So I think that's a little bit of a cheeky ask, but I've heard of advertisers doing that. I've heard of people, saying, okay, well, we'll do the first month for free, or first couple of months for 3 months for free, and then yeah, we'll take a fee based on what you generate. Performance based, Gene. I mean, what's your thoughts on that? Like when someone comes to you and says, Gene, I want you to do the account. Once I get 50 leads or 100 leads after the first week, I'll pay you. What are your
Yeah.
thoughts?
So I
Have you
have
had
gotten,
this? Yeah.
I've definitely gotten that before, and my answer is basically the same, and I just say no. But before I say no, I do look at their offering. I do look at their offering and I look at their niche and see what type of industry they're in. Usually it's, if it was a different industry, I might have to take two looks at it, but usually it's some drop ship, like, a store that hasn't, sells diapers and needles, and so it's never a good offering, because
Mm,
if you had a good offering, you probably wouldn't use that type of bait or lure to have someone do PPC for you, because you know that it could be lopsided on the other way, on the other side, if that's the case, if you have a good offering. So yeah, I usually say no. But I can definitely see some people, maybe perhaps you just started and you don't have anything, and if you hadn't had anything in so long, maybe experience at that point is a good starting point. So yeah.
Yeah, that's fair. I agree. Most of the time I'm going to say no to people, and I don't even, I mean, Gene's probably a better person, better human being than I am because I don't even entertain the idea, I just flat out say, no, I'm sorry, it's not for me, don't go look elsewhere. But I'm not going to be so rude about it. I'll be polite, of course, and professional. But that's kind of what I'm saying is that, it's not for me. Jog on. So yeah. The next one, hourly contracts, I should say. Gene's wincing there. Why are you wincing about that one? You don't like hourly contracts?
It just reminds me of like a specific website that I never had good traction on before. So
Oh,
that's
really?
all. But yeah, you can continue. I'll tell you after, I guess.
We might be on a different page because I mean hourly contracts is in this is a very agency based model where this client has allocated 10 hours per month, right? This client has 20 hours allocated per month, and the agency will say you need to meet 10 hours on this client, you need to meet 20 hours or 40 hours on these clients because they're all paying different rates, they're all in different price brackets essentially. So if somebody's on the books and they're paying for 40 hours of work, then they're on a higher price bracket, of course, because you're spending 40 hours compared to a smaller client who's only paying for 10 hours per month. So it gets a bit messy, and it's a very popular way of doing things in the agency world because then it's all about timekeeping and okay, I did this, I changed this keyword and I added these negatives, and it's all about trying to build the time up. But the problem with that is there in itself is that I think you're doing too much inside the account to make the numbers up. You're over managing things. You're in the account too much just so that each and every month you're meeting that 40 hours per month. And this is the thing is that I don't think you need to do 40 hours per month in an account. I think that's way too much because you need to let things settle. You need to make a change. You need to leave it the adequate time, 7 to 10 days, maybe even 14 days, if it's something as big as a bidding strategy change. And then you need to review the results. You need to look at the data before making any decisions, especially if you've gone from, say, like a manual bidding strategy to a maximize conversions or maximize conversions target CPA bidding strategy. You need the data to kind of read what has happened over the last period since you made that change. So let's just say after 7 days, well, let's say I've changed from manual to maximize conversions. I'm going to give it 2 weeks, and then I've got 2 weeks worth of data there to reference and look over. Has it worked? Has it outperformed manual? Should I look to go back to manual? You might want to run an experiment for this as well. That's something to look at. But this is the thing. You need to let things sit and optimize and learn. If you have a client that's like, 40 hours per month, you could be over managing. That's what I'm trying to say. So I don't like the hourly contracts thing. I also think it's a little bit unfair, I guess, in a way between like different clients and things like that. Um, for me, pretty much all of my clients are paying the same flat rate. So it's one of those things. It's not, there's no fighting. Everybody kind of gets the same. And I don't really work on an hourly basis anyway. Everyone gets the same treatment. Everybody gets the same type of management from me. There's not like a tiering system, like a package 1, 2, or 3. It's the same thing that I'm doing in different accounts. Everybody gets the same management from me. So to differentiate that is a little bit, in my opinion, difficult to do. And yeah, Gene, hourly contracts. What is that what you thought I meant, or
Yeah, I mean,
did you
so
think I
like
meant something else?
no, I think it's fairly similar to what I was thinking of. I just thought that, like there's this website that shall not be named, and it's always hourly, and it just reminds me it's like there could be other gig work that hourly works perfectly fine for, but for something where the input and output has a mismatch in Google Ads, and that's exactly what Ryan was alluding to, that you might be over managing if you have a specific, I see it as a quota. It's like if you were a policeman and you have a quota, it doesn't seem to have integrity. It's like almost like I'm just moving things around or giving people tickets for the sake of the quota. And I think that's unfair and could be, like Ryan just said, very negative for the account. So, yeah, I agree.
So would you like how do you manage like your clients? I mean, do you have different pricing packages or like this is your package one, like my low package and package three is my high package, or does everybody get the same management from you regardless?
Yeah, at this point, it's basically all, if you were talking about a month to month retainer, it's all the same package. I'm trying to get you the return on ad spend that we've aligned or agreed upon, and, in the X amount of time that we've agreed upon, or whatever it may be, and to scale that. And I think how that breaks down even further is some customers or some clients might need a little bit more hand holding in how many times I'm going into the account. I think it really just depends on the structure of the campaigns. If we're looking at specifically a manual campaign versus something that's automated, but not to say that something that's automated won't get as much time, but it just really depends, right? Like for me, I could do a lot of Google Merchant Center work all in one day, but then keyword negatives and search term rotation might take a little bit longer because there needs to be that time in between. So I think it does depend on specific campaign and client or niche, but all of it is just basically one tier.
Yeah, that's a really good answer. I like that. Thank you. Um, just a couple more from me, and then I'm gonna switch it over to Gene. But I've got in brackets like other. So if you're just starting out, or if you're looking at an account spend and you can decide, that's another option. So if you're just starting out, what you can do is you could just say, okay, well, I'll manage the account, for $100 a month, £100 per month, or something like that. 150, maybe 200, really depends what you want to charge, just to get that experience, just to get that review that we talked about in the last episode. When you're just starting out, working for free may be an option, just to get that review. If you want to charge, you've got to make it look lucrative to the client, like they're getting a good deal. You might not have the experience yet, you might not have the track record yet, so you've got to be careful with that. If you want to charge $100, £100, £200, $200, whatever it might be, you've got to make sure that the client understands that they're getting a good deal and that they feel like they're getting value. I think that's the most important part of this, is value from the client side. If they feel that they're getting value, and if they feel that they can trust that you're going to do a good job, then they'll pay, really, I think. So that's something. But the other one is similar to a percentage based of ad spend that I talked about, where you could look at an account and say, okay, well, this one, they're spending like, £10,000 per month, you know, £250 per month management fee is not going to cut it, or £500 management fee is not going to cut it because they're spending 10,000. If they can afford to spend that, then I want to get like at least 1,000. So you could do something like that if you wanted to. You could look at, how much the client is spending on ads and then decide. And that doesn't even have to be percentage based. That's just you picking a number out of thin air based on what you think is like fine and is fair based on what they're spending and what you think they can afford to spend on management. Um, and then the last thing for me, just before I hand over to Gene, is something that is often overlooked, and I've done this a few times, and I'm still 50-50 as if I'm going to do it again. I probably won't, in all honesty, but you could potentially look to ask for an increase. If you've got a client base of, say, 5, 10, 15, 20, however many clients, rather than look for new clients, you could look to, improve or increase your management fee from your current client base. That's a good way of growing your business, in my opinion, is asking for an increase, but it's a very risky maneuver. I've lost a couple of clients, in all honesty, by doing that. And I don't think, I've positioned it like, okay, this is why. And they've been like, yeah, great. But then like a month or two after, it's like, you're rocking the boat a little bit. So if you don't want to rock the boat, probably don't do that strategy. But I wanted to throw it in there because it's kind of related to this. And I think it's a strategy that's often overlooked by a lot of freelancers, maybe even agencies. I know a lot of agencies focus more on contracts, but more freelancers, I think you could look to reach out to your current clients and say, look, we've had a crazy good year. I've generated all this revenue for you. I've given you all these leads. I think it's only fair if you take my management fee from X to X. So from like $500 to 1,000, or from 1,000 to 2,000, whatever it might be. If you've got a bit of backing behind you and you can demonstrate your worth and, look at the value I've brought, then you're in a better position. But even then, it's a very risky maneuver and you've got to kind of give them something more. It's fine asking for a higher management fee from a current client, but what are they going to get that you're not currently giving them? That's the question. So it's a very risky one, because why would they pay more for what they're currently getting? It doesn't really make sense. So they need a little bit of more of a reason to increase the fee. So, Gene, before I hand over, any more thoughts on, when you're just starting out, when you look at an account's ad spend and you say, okay, well, I'm going to charge, 1,000 because they're spending 10 grand, or even potentially asking current clients for an increase. Have you ever done that or?
Yeah, so that last one, I think that is, like you said, very risky. I wouldn't, for me, I haven't done that exactly, but what I've done is asked if, not asked, but I've prescribed and recommended, hey, you might need email marketing, and I'll tack on 400 more to your monthly retainer. So we're at 1,000 for Google Ads and this, or social media. I like to expand with the ask with a value proposition. And that's granted if you do have the experience. Don't do it if you don't have the experience or don't feel like you could provide the correct value that you're proposing. But I do 100% agree with the risk of potentially asking for an increase, especially if you haven't prefaced that in an earlier meeting where you blindsiding them and they're thinking that one of the reasons why I signed with you is the lovely month to month, freelancer, as opposed to the agency that's locking you in through contract. But it's like almost kind of the same thing if you're not being totally honest that you will ask that if there is good performance. Now, I am more than okay in the first month to go and say, hey, this is what we're going to do. This is my retainer fee. But if we see an increase in ROAS that holds for 6 months over one, ROAS that we have right now, adding a 2 or 3 or 4, whatever percentage it is, we could renegotiate that, then that's fine to ask that. But I agree with you that potentially it could be a risk. And I think you have to set it up where you're communicating it first and then perhaps asking later. So yeah, I agree.
That's cool. Did you want to get into your points?
Yeah, yeah, I
Cool.
could get into mine, and I think one big question you have to ask yourself is, where are you in the journey of freelancing or agency work? Um, are you at currently, and where do you want to be? I think one thing that I've experienced is being easy with clients is a great way to establish the roster. And I think that is first and foremost, if you are beginning, very crucial. Do you have, one or three or four or five that will always, have a good relationship with you, pay the invoices on time, and respect you as you respect them in the relationship and collaborations that you'll have together through Google Ads. I think that's far more important than a quick invoice of a month, and then you don't have that longevity because you might have bit off too much that you could chew or put too much on your plate. So I think understanding, there is going to be opportunity costs between how much you can make currently and what you can make in a year or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 years. And I think as a small business owner, forget that you're even in Google Ads. As a small business owner, you're really needing to look ahead as opposed to the first 6 months, a year. Look in bigger parameters of time, 5 years, 10 years. Is this something you have the capacity to do in the next 5 years, 10 years? And how do you get to that if we can't set up what we have right now in a very sustainable way? And that's not overcharging. Or what I mean by overcharging is not just giving them a higher invoice. It's what Ryan discussed earlier. Your value has to match that invoice bottom line. If you can't match that, then you're doing not only the client a disservice, but yourself, because you're pinning yourself towards an uphill battle to maybe rack your brain all the time because you know you're charging 1,000 per invoice, but how am I getting that value to my client if I don't feel like I'm providing that value to my client? You know what $500 or $400 worth of work looks like. And, for you to be able to say, I agree that I am worth four or five, $1,000, that you have to put that work in. And if you can't say I put that work in, then you're not only shortchanging the client, but you're almost shortchanging yourself. So that, in my opinion, is very important that we learn the dynamics of money versus relationships, short term versus long term. And before I ask what Ryan thinks about this, I think this is a good time to just tell experiences of what we've had. I've had clients before that, I'm like, man, I'm charging this guy $400, but I'm doing so much work. When is it ever gonna be, when am I going to feel like I'm actually getting paid for what I am doing for this person? But as a small business or a freelancer agency, I think it's important for us to surpass what we show on the invoice. Do more work. You'll never know what you're going to get. And I've gotten in the past that same feeling, and 3 or 4, 5, 6 months later, you fast forward and they're referring you to other people. And you're like, wow, like the trust and the stress that I had giving this client everything that I could actually is paying off, because now it's 3x because they referred me to 3 other people. So I think it's really, stripping it down and knowing what am I charging and can I surpass that? Can I under promise and over deliver that so that the retention is there? Any thoughts on that first point, Ryan?
Really good point right there, right off the bat from you. So that was cool. A couple of things actually. It is, as much as it's a performance based, you know, um, niche that we operate in with Google Ads, it's relationship based as well. You have to have that relationship with the client. You can't neglect them, just like you can't neglect the Google Ads account. I'd probably say half of the month I spend emailing my clients, having phone calls with my clients, sending reports to my clients, explaining them what I'm trying to achieve and how it looks and things like that, just so that they're on the same page with me. So it is a very relationship based niche and business that we operate in, as much as the performances as well. So I'd probably say it's 50-50. Obviously you can have a really great relationship with someone, but if you're not getting the results, then they're probably going to let you go, which is a shame. But if you're getting really, really great results, but the client isn't very nice, or you're not on the same wavelength, then it can make your life a lot harder. So you have to find that balance. Great relationship, great results. It makes everybody's life so much easier. Great relationship, poor results, not too bad, because as long as you can explain to the client, this is what I'm doing now, this is where I envisage we'll get to, it's just a little bit of growing pains. It's a little bit of short-term pain for long-term gain. If you can explain that to the client, then there's a chance that they'll stay with you and trust the process, which I think is key. But like I said, poor results, no, good results, poor relationship, it's never really ended well for me in my experience. But the other thing that G mentioned there as well, which I thought was really good, and I forgot to kind of pick up on it as well, is Gene talked about, okay, you need to convey value at that 4,000, at that £5,000 or dollar price point. If you're charging 4,000 or 5,000 per month, for your management fee, you need to provide that value. Of course you do. But I actually think it could be counterintuitive because if you lose that client, what's gonna be more of an impact? You losing a client at $400 or £400 or £500 or $500, or losing a client at 4,000 or 5,000, dollars or pounds. I think it's more impactful if you lose the client at 5,000 than it is at 500. Um, so think about that when you think about how much you want to charge for your services. Think long term. If I lose this client, how much is it going to impact me? So just think about that when you kind of look to review how much you want to charge.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. And you speaking right now, jogged my memory of it either being a YouTube, TikTok, X, Twitter, whatever. But I heard the saying, hard skills gets you in the door, soft skills keep you inside. So it's really important that you show credibility, certifications, any performance, hard skills. But what really keeps that client attached is how you treat them with respect, how you provide transparency and integrity with exactly what's going on with their account and what you're working on. I think that not only develops a good financial relationship with a client, but it's more so the actual relationship of doing business where you're providing a service and they're accepting your service because of the value that you see through. So I think that in general is why we do PPC. I know it's great that for me, I have it as a side business and Ryan has it as a main business, and it's afforded us a lot of things and we're very thankful for that. But I think more so beyond that, we're thankful for the opportunity with our current clients that the trust is there, the respect is there, and that we're operating on the wavelength that's very aligned, and because we've seen the other side of it where we're not aligned and we're misaligned. And it's such a terrible, stressful feeling where you feel like you should be charging this, but maybe the client doesn't think so, and the performance and all. So we just love to, make sure that we're establishing that relationship alongside financially, but that also that relationship with the client, I think is super important for you not only to, you know, stay in the game short term, but you'll really love what you do more and you'll be able to do it for a longer period of time if you have both firing correctly. So yeah, moving on, we get back to what is a reasonable, Google Ads management fee. I think it really does depend on current ads budget. That of course is something that I do look at. If it's an extreme, I have more of a range. If it's like, maybe 500 to 15, 2,500, this is the same. But once we start going, 5,000, 10,000 a month in spend, then we start reevaluating, or at least like we mentioned before, start having that, okay, we will start here, but end here if the return is good or the ROAS is good, the conversion, cost per conversion is doing well. So I think for anyone that's starting out, know your buckets. So be like, okay, this under 700, under 1,000 will be here, 1,000 or 2,000, or maybe then you have the outliers of the 5,000 to 10,000. But even at that point, it's really important for us to never jump the gun, right? Never seem like we're too money hungry, because clients will see that. You could explain that this is my value, but all they're seeing is spend that they're giving to you, spend that's going to the actual Google Ads budget, and the return. That's how a business owner will see that. So we have to make sure that makes sense. Another thing is, it just depends on your current goals. What are your goals? Not everyone wants 500 from a client. Not every PPC manager wants 1,000. Some might be totally happy working with just 3 clients doing 1,000, or 20 clients doing 300. So look introspectively and just whatever makes you happy, because I can't say that me and Ryan's price works for everybody, or our baseline. You have to kind of do trial and error. A lot of things in life is learned what not to do before we learn what to do. So it's a lot of that. Do you feel happy with 300 a month? Or do you feel like you are being shortchanged and you're providing the value that we're going above and beyond at 300? So it's really up to you to really make sure you understand your goals. Another thing for me is specifically, I do this actually, is niche. I know which niches I've seen a lot of customers and clients in and that I have experience in. And I know exactly, even if Google Ads doesn't work, the value that I'll be able to be provided to that client is good value, because I'll be able to direct them in other areas beyond Google Ads. I could understand, hey, if you have a premium product, we have to make sure that your email marketing is top tier. If you have a high, multi-touch point product, premium product, this needs to be, so for me, niche also, it depends. And I might not be as proficient in some niches, and I'm okay to say that and be like, maybe I will charge a little bit more to get practice, and maybe we work together through this. For me, I'm starting in lead gen. I'm particularly just e-commerce. Ryan does both. And so for maybe a lead gen client, just because, I'll be totally transparent and be like, I, only had a handful of experience in lead gen, I'll charge you this. Any thoughts on that, Ryan, of just being more fluid and flexible with either your niche or your goals, or any of that?
Yeah, definitely. I think a lot of times I'm on the same page. I can see the potential that clients have, and I can see that they're doing everything right. It can be a really strong brand, it can be a really great website, a customer shopping experience, or just a great like website experience. They've got the website just set up on point. It could be set up for conversions to happen, meaning an embedded contact form that's ready to be filled out. And what's great these days with iPhone, with Android, you can autofill those. So you're basically making it as easy as possible for people to leave a contact form or a lead form. Or you've got the phone number there so people can click to call, or you're using Shopify, where it's just so seamless and so easy to check out. So all of these things I can see a client doing best practices, and you know Google Ads is the final piece of the puzzle. They're not quite there yet. They don't really have the expertise or the knowledge, but if they just get that final piece slotted in, then it could just completely transform the business. They could just take their business to the next level, start generating a lot more profits, more leads, and things like that. So when that happens, if I can see the value and the potential of the client, I'm happy to kind of say, right, well, look, let's start out for the first 3 months at this price. It could be, well, I don't really want to name specific prices because, it can vary between everybody. It really has to come down to you if you want to do this method as well. But obviously what I'm saying is that, if you see the potential, you could say, let's start at this price for the first 3 months. And then if you see the value in what we're doing, you can take it up to this price, which is my normal management fee, for example. That has worked really well for many clients of mine where I was able to convey that value over the 3 month period. It's like a trial period, I guess. And it's good because it also trials the relationship between you and the client as well. It's not just, okay, well, I'm going to charge you this, and then after 3 months, it's going to be this. How do you work together? Is it a good relationship that you have? Are you on the same page with the direction of the ad account, with the business, and things like that? Um, so that can be a really good model to take on board and use for yourself, is to say, I'll start with, the first 3 months at this price per month. And then after month three, we'll move it up to this, because by that point, you should have a handful of leads. You should have a handful of sales and things like that. So yeah, really good point. I really like that. What do you think? Is that what you were saying?
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes it doesn't pan out. Sometimes I get super excited about it, a website. I'm like, this is a premium product. I can't believe they haven't even had the success that they should have had on Google Ads already. But then you go into it and you're like, okay, like this, I understand now. I understand why it's not, it hasn't done well. But yeah, I am flexible. And I think that's the biggest thing in business also. It's don't let price or, what we should charge get in the way of a relationship or an opportunity. I think especially first and foremost when you don't have that many options or that many opportunities, don't ever let that be the barrier. It could be you could be doing management for $50 if you're starting out, but you let them know, hey, if it gets over to this amount of return on ad spend, we're going to have that conversation. And I think it's really important also to, if you want to work in a niche or someone that you want to work with, lowering that could, initially be less friction. And, for me, some accounts I'm really happy because of what I'm getting out of, financially and what I'm providing them as a value. But then I have other accounts that I'm just happy to work on because this is something that I'm super excited about, that I'm interested in. It could be fashion or a pair of sneakers, so I'm like really happy to, grateful to just get this, because, it's low stress and you're able to just perform the way you want to perform and know that you're bringing more value than what's on the invoice. So yeah, I think it's good to be flexible with the niche and a lot of other variables. Just, just make sure that you are flexible is what I'm trying to say. Lastly is, well, first is capacity. This is a given. Sometimes for me and Ryan, we get super busy Q4, and yeah, we can maybe take on another client, but it's going to take us a little bit more to get there, to be motivated, to really work hard and really put this as a priority, or else we're not going to take you on. So it could be capacity wise. And on the other, spectrum, we've talked about, this is usually for beginners. If you have a lot of capacity, well, then maybe you need to lower your price. So being flexible in that regard also. And lastly, for real, lastly, is know your worth and your effort. You understand, if you do an audit, that okay, there's a lot of things messed up in this account. That it could be an uphill battle even on their Shopify. Maybe you have to charge a little bit more for you to really go in and do all these things, because you could get fatigued with trying your hardest, especially on the Google Ads side. But if the Shopify side isn't matching what you have on the Google Ads, then the invoice might need to be a little bit higher, on for you to take on this client. And if they deny it, then maybe it's not a good opportunity for both of you. So that understanding of knowing your worth is so cliche, but it's the only way for you to have longevity in this business, to not feel disrespected or taken for granted, or just wanting to do it in general and opening up the account. If you know your worth and you're giving them that invoice that matches that. But on the flip side, understand your effort also. Like I said earlier, we touched on this earlier, don't give an invoice or provide an invoice you can't over deliver on. So I think it's a delicate balance. Last final thoughts. That's it for me. But last final thoughts on those points, or anything else, Ryan?
No, I think, as always, maybe I'm biased, but I think we've really done a good job of talking about this subject. I think it's so, like, to the individual, it really depends on what you want to charge per month, or however you want to do it. It could be per quarter. I mean, that's the other thing. We're just assuming it's per month, but you could be paid per quarter, per 6 months, per year. It depends, really. So there's many different, like, horizontal and vertical kind of strategies out there for this kind of subject. So it really depends how you want to play it. I'd almost go as far as to say there isn't really a right or wrong answer. There is a trend in how Google Ads account managers charge for their services, such as, like, typically, like I said, 80, maybe 90% of the time, a fixed monthly retainer is the go-to, because it just makes sense. It's just easy, just no headaches. And yeah, so it really depends on you, how you want to structure your payments, what you feel is fair to charge in relation to the services that you provide. So this is the thing. But no, I think we did a really good job of discussing all the points. But any final thoughts from you, or are you happy for me to close out?
I mean, the only thing I want to say is, it like Ryan just mentioned, there is not really like a blueprint. Like if you look like a remodeler or someone that, like there's kind of like the hourly, like, okay, this is what I'm gonna charge. But for this, it's such a strange, not strange, but it's just different. It's just a different, there's so many variables. So, but all I can say is, make sure you understand what your goals are, um, and what you're worth as a freelancer or even agency, and what effort you could provide to surpass that invoice, if it be monthly, quarterly, yearly, like Ryan said. So yeah, that's it for me.
A couple of weeks ago, we were at 89 subscribers on the YouTube channel now. And that was great. I just thought, 89 is fantastic. Like having that amount of people that actually listen and watch what we have to say about Google Ads, to me is just crazy and really cool. But now, fast forward to 2 weeks later, we're at 261 subscribers. And that's great. And I want to thank everyone who has subscribed to us and is watching us and listening to us, whether it's on the way to work, on a run, at work, whatever it might be. I appreciate the love and the support, which is fantastic. But it's funny because, I'm saying like, oh, it's great to have 261. But if Gene and I are still doing this in 5 years and we've got 5,000 or God knows how many more, it's going to be funny to kind of watch these episodes back and be like, oh my God, we got 50 subscribers, we got 89 subscribers, we're so happy. So it's just it's cool. But yeah, 261, we're getting there, Gene. We're growing. What do you think?
Yeah, we're super happy, but we're never satisfied because we want to provide y'all more content. It's just like in life, right? It's like, oh, I got my first client, or but no, I'm trying to get 20 or 40 or 50 or 100, So we're just appreciative, that y'all are a part of this journey, and we'll continue to provide value for sure.
I think last week as well, Gene dropped a special offer for our subscribers, followers, listeners. I don't know if anyone's taken us up on that one yet, but you know, it not yet, but it's cool. So go back and watch last week's episode if you're watching this to maybe take Gene's offer up on what he said in that episode. I'm not going to reveal it. You need to go back and watch. But it's a really good offer, really, really great offer. But yeah, I'm just really thankful for everyone who is subscribing, and yeah, it just motivates us to do more content and put things out there, which is cool. So we'll see how the next weeks kind of go on. But this is the thing, is that me and Gene, we release content every Monday, up on a mountain or something. What is it? Mountain time, I think you say.
Yeah,
Um
no.
so keep an eye out every Monday for new episodes, new content being released. Sometimes it's Gene and I, sometimes it's not, sometimes it's just me, sometimes it's just Gene. But we always try and make sure the channel is updated with the latest tips, tricks, advice, and news regarding Google Ads. And yeah, we're everywhere. YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, I think not Spotify. Because we do so much with Shopify, I
Yeah.
get them so mixed up all the time. I'm like, oh yeah, listen to us on Shopify. I'm like, oh, I meant to say Spotify. So that's a killer. But yeah, everywhere. So give us a follow, give us a subscribe. We appreciate it. Next week we're going to be talking about how to beat 90% of advertisers, which I'm excited to talk about because going to reveal a few secrets that I do, that Gene does, that will hopefully help you, like I say, beat 90% of other Google Ads account managers out there, and keep your clients happier and keep them for longer, which is really cool. But if that's it, if there's nothing else, Gene, where can people find you?
GeneVillanos.com.
Cool. And you can find me at ryanfentonppc.co.uk. And yeah, we'll speak to you next week. Have a great week.